You were trained to see discipline as self-improvement, a private virtue, a quiet agreement between you and your conscience. That framing is weak and deliberately incomplete. Discipline is not for your peace. It is for other people's submission. Power does not announce itself. It applies pressure, and pressure is only respected when it is consistent, impersonal, and indifferent to emotion. Discipline, when hardened, becomes exactly that, a force others must calculate around. Not because you threaten them, but because you do not bend. Most men leak intent. They explain themselves. They telegraph moods, fatigue, hunger for approval. This makes them legible, and legibility invites interference. Discipline removes legibility. It turns behavior into something mechanical, non-negotiable, almost inhuman. When people cannot read you, they cannot predict you. When they cannot predict you, they retreat. Here is the inversion you were never taught. Warmth invites testing. Flexibility invites intrusion. Availability invites disrespect. What repels rivals is not aggression, it is inevitability. Discipline creates inevitability. Think like a strategist, not a moralist. In war, you do not fear the loud army. You fear the one that moves on schedule, regardless of weather, loss, or morale. The army that does not improvise emotionally. The army that advances because it is Tuesday. That is discipline weaponized. When your habits are unbreakable, you stop signaling need. You stop bargaining with circumstance. You stop adjusting yourself to be liked. This creates an asymmetry. Others adapt to you, or they remove themselves. Most choose withdrawal. Not consciously, instinctively. This is where weak men misunderstand the reaction. They think respect comes from charisma or dominance displays. Those are noisy tools. Discipline is silent. It works below awareness. People feel it before they understand it. They sense that you are not persuadable, that excuses will not land, that emotional appeals will be ignored. So they stop trying. Discipline is terrifying because it removes hope of manipulation. A man who can be delayed can be controlled. A man who can be distracted can be diverted. A man who can be emotionally hooked can be steered. Discipline cuts all three. It makes you expensive to interfere with. This is not about productivity. That language is for employees. This is about sovereignty. Your time, your body, your attention locked behind routines that do not negotiate. Once others realize access is denied, behavior around you changes. Jokes soften. Requests become careful. Challenges evaporate. Not because you demanded respect. Because you made disrespect inefficient. Understand this clearly. Discipline is not self-control. Self-control is reactive. Discipline is pre-committed. Self-control wrestles impulses. Discipline eliminates the arena. There is nothing to argue with. The decision was made long ago. Machiavelli understood this well. He warned that inconsistency breeds contempt. Mercy, generosity, and flexibility, when visible, are read as openings. The ruler who is predictable in strength, even if severe, creates stability. The one who vacillates creates chaos and invites challenge. Your life is a territory. Discipline is the border wall, not decorative, not symbolic, functional. When you harden discipline, you stop needing to assert yourself verbally. You stop explaining boundaries. Your behavior explains them for you. People who thrive on friction, drama, and leverage find no purchase. They drift away. Rivals don't confront you, they choose other targets. This chapter reframes the lens completely. Discipline is not for becoming better. It is for becoming untouchable, and once that lens is installed, the rest follows naturally because now you are no longer asking how to improve yourself. You are asking how to make others instinctively withdraw. Humans do not retreat from strength. They retreat from certainty. This distinction matters. Strength invites competition. Certainty ends it. Most men try to appear strong. They raise their voice. They posture. They signal confidence. These displays trigger assessment, not surrender. Other men test them the way predators test injured prey, probing for inconsistency, fatigue, or emotional leakage. Strength that must be proven is assumed to be negotiable. Discipline removes negotiation. The human nervous system is calibrated to avoid what cannot be influenced. From childhood, we learn where effort works and where it is wasted. Doors that sometimes open invite knocking. Doors that never open are walked around. Discipline turns you into the second door. This is not philosophy. It is conditioning. When your actions occur at fixed intervals, unaffected by praise, pressure, or provocation, observers subconsciously register you as non-reactive terrain. No dopamine reward, no leverage, no angle. The brain flags you as high cost, low return. Avoidance follows. This is why rivals withdraw without confrontation. Confrontation requires the belief that something can be gained. Discipline removes that belief. Notice how people behave around institutions versus individuals. A man may argue endlessly with another man. He does not argue with gravity. He does not negotiate with deadlines enforced by systems. Discipline transforms you from a person into a system. Systems are not persuaded. They are complied with or avoided. There is also a darker mechanism at work. Disciplined behavior mirrors death. Not literal death, psychological death. Stillness, silence, repetition, no emotional variance. The human mind associates this with finality, with endings, with things that do not care if you exist. That association triggers unease. Emotionally expressive men are safe because they can be reached. They react. They explain. They soften. Discipline denies all of that. It offers no emotional surface to grip. Rivals cannot read intent, cannot escalate socially, cannot extract reassurance. The uncertainty drains them. Most conflicts are fueled by emotional feedback loops. One reaction invites another. Discipline starves the loop. Without feedback, the aggressor is left alone with his own energy. That is uncomfortable. So he disengages. This is why silence is often more threatening than rage. Rage burns out. Silence endures. From an evolutionary perspective, animals avoid prey that does not flee or fight normally. Erratic responses signal danger. In humans, emotional flatness combined with consistency creates the same signal. You are not playing the expected game. Instinct says, step back. Understand the key point. Rivals are not consciously thinking. He is disciplined. I should retreat. Their body decides before their mind catches up. Their tone shifts. Their challenges soften. Their presence diminishes. They lose interest. That loss of interest is not boredom. It is self-preservation. This is also why discipline must be visible but unexplained. Once you justify your routines, you turn certainty back into choice. Choice invites persuasion. Silence preserves the mechanism. When you always leave at the same time, refuse the same distractions, and maintain the same standards regardless of who is watching, people begin to adjust themselves around you. They schedule around you. They speak differently to you. Or they disappear. Withdrawal is the cleanest outcome. No enemies. No drama. Just absence. This chapter installs the mechanism. Discipline works not by confrontation, but by making engagement irrational. Once this is understood, the next question becomes unavoidable. Who benefits from discipline and who cannot survive near it? Every social environment sorts men into patterns, not by intention, by behavior. Two archetypes emerge wherever pressure exists: the disciplined predator and the expressive man. One commands space without asking. The other fills space and wonders why he is challenged. The expressive man is encouraged by modern culture. He is told visibility equals power, that sharing builds trust, that openness signals strength. So he narrates his thoughts, his struggles, his intentions. He believes being understood will protect him. It does the opposite. Expression creates data. Data creates leverage. When a man speaks freely, others learn where he bends, what he values, what unsettles him. His emotions become handles. His consistency evaporates because his behavior is tied to mood, validation, and response. He is readable. Readable men are manageable. The disciplined predator is different. He does not perform identity. He enacts routine. His behavior changes slowly, if at all. He reveals nothing that is not already irrelevant. He is not secretive. He is simply uninterested in being interpreted. This is the crucial distinction. Secrecy is defensive. Discipline is indifferent. Predators do not stalk noisily. They conserve energy. They move when conditions are optimal, not when emotions demand release. The disciplined man operates the same way. He does not rush to correct disrespect. He does not chase acknowledgement. He does not explain absence or refusal. This creates asymmetry. The expressive man is always reacting. The disciplined predator is always setting conditions. Observe how conflicts form. The expressive man escalates verbally, seeking resolution or recognition. The disciplined predator withdraws behaviorally, altering access and timing. One seeks closure. The other creates distance. Distance wins. The expressive man mistakes silence for weakness and presses harder. This accelerates his own exposure. Each attempt to provoke confirms his dependency on response. Meanwhile, the disciplined predator remains unchanged. No reaction. No correction. No engagement. At this point, most rivals experience a subtle humiliation, not inflicted, but self-generated. They realize they are performing alone, talking into a void, pushing against something that does not acknowledge them. So they stop. This is why discipline selects for hierarchy without overt dominance. The disciplined predator does not need to assert superiority. Others do it for him by adjusting, deferring, or withdrawing. In professional environments, he is the man whose time is scarce. In social environments, he is the man whose presence alters tone. In hostile environments, he is the man people choose not to test twice. The expressive man, by contrast, is constantly involved, always explaining, always clarifying, always defending. He believes engagement is strength. In reality, engagement is access and access is vulnerability. This chapter forces an identity confrontation. You cannot be both archetypes. One survives on reaction. The other survives on pre-commitment. If you are expressive, discipline will feel like suffocation at first. That discomfort is not loss of self, it is loss of exposure. You are no longer broadcasting signals. You are closing the circuit, and once the circuit is closed, a shift occurs. You stop attracting challengers, not because you are feared, but because you are inefficient to engage. The disciplined predator is not loved. He is respected by default and avoided by instinct. That is the trade. The next chapter will prove this pattern is not theoretical. History, power structures, and human behavior all converge on the same outcome. Patterns that repeat across centuries are not opinions. They are laws wearing different uniforms. Discipline is one of them. History does not remember the most expressive rulers. It remembers the most consistent ones. not the kindest, not the most brilliant, the ones whose behavior could not be pressured into deviation. Their rigidity created predictability, and predictability created obedience. Consider empires, not individuals. Rome did not dominate because every leader was exceptional. It dominated because its systems outlived men. Legions marched when ordered, regardless of terrain, loss, or morale. That indifference to circumstance broke enemies before battle. Many surrendered without engagement. They understood resistance was temporary. Rome was permanent. This is the effect discipline creates at the human scale. Machiavelli warned that a ruler who shifts behavior to please others invites contempt. Mercy shown inconsistently breeds resentment. Flexibility without structure invites exploitation. Severity, when stable, creates order. People adapt to what does not change. The same logic applies in every hierarchy: courts, armies, corporations, gangs. The leader feared least is the emotional one. The leader obeyed most is the predictable one. Not predictable in kindness, but predictable in consequence. Human nature seeks advantage. Advantage requires leverage. Discipline removes leverage by removing variance. History is filled with figures who ruled through silence and routine. Men who spoke rarely, acted methodically, and punished deviation without spectacle. They were not loved. They were not debated. They were endured. And endurance is power. Even rebellions reveal the rule. Revolts occur not under strict regimes, but under weakening ones. When rules soften, when discipline fractures, when exceptions multiply. People do not rise against iron, they test cracks. This is the threat discipline poses to rivals. Not confrontation, but permanence. At the interpersonal level, the same dynamics apply. The man whose standards never bend becomes the reference point. Others measure themselves against him unconsciously. Some try to compete and fail. Most choose distance. Look at human nature under pressure. In every group, people identify who can be influenced and who cannot. Energy flows toward the former. The latter are avoided or deferred to. This sorting happens quietly, without discussion. The disciplined man becomes a boundary others respect without being told. History also shows what happens to men who rely on charisma instead of discipline. Their power evaporates the moment attention shifts. Their influence depends on mood, context, and audience. Discipline-dependent men survive leadership transitions. Charisma-dependent men do not. This is why institutions outlast founders. Why laws outlast kings. Why routines outlast inspiration. You are not building a persona. You are building a structure. Once others realize your behavior does not adjust for convenience, apology, or pressure, they recalibrate. They stop expecting access. They stop demanding explanation. They stop testing. Some resent this silently. Others admire it from a distance. Both responses end the same way: withdrawal. This chapter drives the point home. Discipline is not a modern productivity trick. It is an ancient dominance technology, one refined through blood, failure, and selection. The next step is unavoidable. If discipline repels rivals, how do you engineer it deliberately, without theatrics, without noise, without exposing intent? Most men fail at discipline because they treat it as internal. Private effort, personal struggle. That is incomplete. Discipline only becomes power when it alters how others experience you. The objective is not to look disciplined. That invites imitation and testing. The objective is to become costly, to interrupt, influence, or derail. Quietly. Start with availability. Availability is the currency predators trade in. If you are easy to reach, easy to schedule, easy to distract, you are easy to probe. Discipline hardens when access becomes conditional and rare. You do not explain unavailability. Explanation is negotiation. You simply are not there. Next is timing. Emotionally driven men act when they feel the urge. Disciplined men act on schedule. Fixed training times. Fixed work blocks. Fixed exits. When your movements follow a pattern that does not bend for social pressure, people stop attempting to bend it. They learn the hard way. Interference fails. Third is refusal without justification. Justification invites debate. Debate implies reversibility. Discipline communicates irreversibility. A short refusal, delivered without affect, ends most power plays immediately. The absence of emotion denies the other party the friction they seek. Fourth is consistency under observation. Many men are disciplined in isolation and flexible in public. This reverses the effect. Discipline must survive witnesses. When you maintain standards in front of those who benefit from you breaking them, the message lands. You are not signaling virtue. You are signaling limits. Fifth is silence after decision. Once a course is chosen, you do not revisit it aloud. Revisiting invites commentary. Commentary invites influence. Discipline closes the loop early and keeps it closed. This is where rivals begin to feel uneasy. They sense there is no opening, no appeal, no clever angle. Your behavior is not hostile, it is final. Notice what this does socially. People who thrive on chaos drift away. People who rely on charm lose interest. Only those who respect structure remain, and they approach carefully. This is not isolation. It is filtration. Strategic hardening also requires the removal of visible reward-seeking. Praise, recognition, approval, these are currencies others can withhold to influence you. When your behavior continues unchanged regardless of feedback, those currencies lose value. The moment others realize you cannot be incentivized or shamed, their strategies collapse. Hardening does not require confrontation. In fact, confrontation weakens the effect. Confrontation acknowledges the other's relevance. Discipline denies it. You are not cold to be cruel. You are cold to be clear. Over time, this creates a reputation that precedes you. He doesn't budge. He doesn't explain. He doesn't adjust. These statements circulate without your involvement. Rivals withdraw before contact. Challenges die before forming. This is the point where discipline transitions from effort to identity. You no longer do disciplined things. You are disciplined in the same way steel is hard without trying. The final chapter completes the transformation. Because once discipline hardens fully, something must die and something else must take its place. At this stage, discipline can no longer coexist with your old identity. Something must be stripped away. Not refined. Not improved. Killed. The old identity is relational. It is shaped by reaction, validation, and explanation. It wants to be understood. It wants its discipline to be admired. That desire is poison. As long as you want recognition, you remain influenceable. Discipline demands anonymity. This is where most men retreat. Not because discipline is difficult, but because identity death is intolerable. They sense the loss before it happens. Fewer invitations, fewer opinions requested, fewer emotional hooks. The noise fades. Silence expands. Silence is misinterpreted as emptiness. In reality, it is sovereignty. When your behavior no longer adjusts to preserve image, you stop being a social participant and become an environmental factor. Others do not interact with you, they account for you. Like weather, like terrain, like law. This is the replacement identity. Not a man seeking position, but a force occupying space. Forces are not liked. They are endured, respected, and planned around. You do not ask the river to change course. You build bridges or stay away. This is how disciplined men are treated once the transition completes. The emotional cost is real. You will feel less seen. That is the final test. If you reach for visibility, you undo the transformation. If you tolerate obscurity, power consolidates. Machiavelli understood that the strongest rulers were often perceived as distant. Distance was not absence, it was insulation. Distance prevented familiarity. Familiarity breeds contempt. Discipline maintains distance without hostility. This identity does not argue. It does not correct misconceptions. It does not chase alignment. It allows others to be wrong at a distance. Notice the inversion. The more disciplined you become, the less you need to assert control. Control emerges naturally as others self-regulate around you. They lower demands. They choose different targets. They withdraw. What dies here is the need to be engaged. What replaces it is inevitability. At this point, rivals do not hate you. Hate requires intimacy. They simply move on. They select easier terrain. This is the final selection process. Discipline filters your environment until only those who respect structure remain. Everyone else removes themselves. You are no longer competing. You are shaping conditions. There is one final pressure seal required, because power that is not maintained decays. The last chapter delivers the warning that keeps discipline from softening back into performance. The world is full of men who think power is given. Promotions, praise, influence, approval, all illusions. Real power is not handed out, it is claimed through endurance, indifference, and inevitability. Those who fail to harden discipline will live surrounded by competitors who drain energy, exploit gaps, and test limits constantly. Weakness invites intrusion. Hesitation invites erosion. Comfort is the deadliest enemy because it disguises decay. This is the truth few admit. Power is territorial. Your habits, routines, and boundaries define the land you occupy. If they are malleable, others seize it. If they are rigid, others retreat. Discipline is not self-improvement. It is fortification. It is the silent siege others fail to notice until it is complete. You are now warned. Every moment you slack, every time you seek approval, every day you compromise standards, you shrink your territory. Rivals, opportunists, and manipulators encroach subtly, often unseen. By the time you recognize it, control has shifted. They withdraw instinctively only when you reassert unbreakable presence. Elite men understand one simple law: permanence beats performance. Noise fades. Emotion fades. The constant endures. The world responds to permanence, not charm, effort, or explanation. Take the final step. Harden routines, close circuits, and build behaviors others cannot touch. Let your identity dissolve into force. The moment you do, rivals stop approaching. They stop arguing. They stop testing. They simply recalibrate their lives to your gravity. Discipline is not a habit. It is the weapon that ensures survival in a world of predators masquerading as allies. Treat it with indifference, enforce it with consistency, and maintain it without apology. That is how men stop being optional. That is how they make rivals withdraw instinctively. The question is no longer if you will harden, it is how soon. Delay guarantees intrusion. Hesitation guarantees erosion. Only absolute, unwavering discipline secures the field and commands instinctive respect. This is the last warning. The choice is final. The full skeleton is now fully expanded into complete chapters. If you want, I can now compile the entire 4,200-word script in one cohesive document, ready for production or narration. while maintaining the cold, Machiavellian tone.